Welcome to the American Business Podcast. I'm Kevin Deveci, your host. I'm welcoming you to the first episode of the American Business Podcast in 2026. This is episode 122. I'm happy to have you today. We are very excited for 2026. We had great plans, and I'm happy to welcome you today. Quote of the day. As you know, we have a great partnership with missionstatements.com. Today's quote is: many of life's failures are people who didn't realize how close they were to success when they gave up. From Thomas Edison. And today's number is 13.8. There are 13.8 million women owned businesses in the US. We have a great guest today, and we'll talk about female owned businesses, female entrepreneurship, and many other education and informative subjects. Before I invite our guest to our virtual stage, let me share some updates about the American Business Podcast. As you know, the American Business Podcast came a long way in 2025. In 6 months, we received YouTube Silver Award, and in 10 months, we received more than 130,000 YouTube subscribers and more than 1 million YouTube views. Thank you so much for your support and help. There is more, and we are working so hard to make sure the American Business Podcast is informative and always educational for you. Having said that, I'm happy to announce that the American Business Podcast is now available in international editions, with international editions, as ABP Espanol, ABP German, ABP French, ABP Hindi, ABP Portuguese, and ABP Turk. That is a first as an American Business Podcast having international podcast editions. So we are happy to be first in US, and we have many more news and updates coming up in the American Business Podcast. As I always say, the American Business Podcast is the voice of American business. We promote, we support, and we uplift American businesses, nonprofits, manufacturers, and the business community. Having said that, let's invite our guest to our virtual stage and let's get the conversation started. Hello, Sarah. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
It is my pleasure. How are you? How was your holiday, New Year's, and the weekend?
Actually, really fun for me. I got to take my first trip to New York City as an adult the week before Christmas, and so that was incredible. I actually was able to go up to the Times Square Ball and take a piece of it. I don't know if you know that's a thing. I was like, what is happening to me right now? But I had
That's
an
exciting.
what?
That's exciting.
Yeah, it was super exciting. But I had an
Yes.
incredible Christmas with my husband and our 3.5-year-old, and
Mhm.
it was really our first Christmas with the Christmas magic with her, and she really understood what was going on. So it was
Yes,
the best.
absolutely. Where are you based out of?
I'm based out of Louisville, Kentucky.
Okay. Yes, that sounds great. Well, so the American Business Podcast, us, we are based in New York City.
hmm
Sometimes we also stream from Houston, Texas.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm glad you made it to New York with your family. And you're right, especially in holiday season, it's really magical in New York
It's
City.
gorgeous.
And I'm
It's so
glad that you
cool.
made it. Yes, that's lovely. That's lovely. Well, how is your take for 2025? Any reflection on 2025? Any plans for 2026?
Yeah, I think 2025, in the best way possible, was a year of pivot for me. As we'll get into talking about, I am the exited founder of a business, and it was my first year really outside of my business and kind of figuring out, how do these really cool entrepreneurial tools and skills that I have now translate into, okay, what is my next endeavor? Or what does success feel like to me today? I feel like I spent a lot of time in 2025 even just like redefining success, because for a long time success was the sale of my business or a metric or something like that. And I think for me now success is more of a feeling for me. So I think that was 2025, was figuring out, okay, I've got this transition year. What am I doing next? And then 2026 is kind of a year of refinement in a lot of ways. And I'm doing a lot of advocacy and activism work that I'm very fortunate to be able to do as a result of the entrepreneurial success that I've had. And so I'm very excited to see how that work unfolds in 2026.
Absolutely. You're our first guest in the American Business Podcast in 2026. It's going to be a great year,
It's gonna
and
be
I'm happy to
fantastic.
have you today. Absolutely, absolutely. We keep the spirit high, hopes high, and positive
Oh
energy
yeah,
always wins. We truly believe that. We are excited for 2026 and happy to have you. Get our conversation started in more detail, if that's okay.
absolutely.
As a start, would you please introduce yourself and your organization to our viewers and to our listeners?
Of course. My name is Sarah Michelle Bowes, and I am the exited founder of Sarah Michelle MP Reviews. It was a test prep business that I founded during COVID that had an emphasis on helping other nurse practitioners, because I'm a nurse practitioner, but helping other nurse practitioners pass their board exams with more confidence and less anxiety. And it was kind of this beautiful storm and moment in time where I mean, it wasn't great that everybody was feeling so anxious with it being during COVID, but the test prep industry was very much ready for a challenger brand, and that's what I was. And for people to really feel like seen and heard for the first time in that space, for a little bit of just perspective. There were 5 or 6 major brands. I used to call them the old dogs, but they had a very set way in which they did test prep, which was fine. It worked, but it didn't meet every student where they were at, and it didn't meet me where I was at. And I had a lot of anxiety preparing for my exam, on top of the fact that it was COVID. And so I would show up to
Mhm.
take my exam, and doors would be closed, and you wouldn't know when you were going to take it. And it took me 5 times of doing that to finally actually take the exam. Creating that business was an incredible life-changing event for me in every sense of the phrase life-changing event. Leading up to COVID, I was making 40 grand a year as a nurse, and we ended up hitting our first 7 figures in 7 months in my test prep brand, and that was with me, one full-time employee and one part-time employee at the time. We were a very lean team. And then right at the 2 year mark was when I went on to sell that business into a bigger test prep brand. And then I later served as their chief nursing officer before I decided, going from entrepreneur to employee is a hard pivot back. And I wasn't ready for how hard that was going to be. I mean, that's just emotionally hard. And so, as I said earlier, last year was my first year out and figuring out what I'm doing next. And this year is how I'm refining all those things that I want to do.
Yeah, this is really exciting.
Super exciting.
This is a really, really inspirational conversation. Well, how did your career journey started? How it has unfolded over the years?
That in itself has also been a wild ride. I love school, which is how I had 3 degrees by the time I was 25. So I actually got my nurse practitioner degree as a 25-year-old, which is still a lot for me to think about. And when I was actually in nursing school, I was almost thrown out of nursing school because I had a panic attack during a clinical, and I had it literally like in the nurses station in front of everyone. And so they literally said to me, they were like, we just don't know if you have the ability to almost like manage your anxiety in a way that you can show up as a safe and competent nurse. And so I had to advocate for myself and really decide for myself, like, is this anxiety thing that I have going on, that I've always had going on, going to debilitate me, or am I going to try to overcome it or adapt to it, or what does that look like? And so I really kind of hedged a bet on myself when they asked me to leave, and I decided to stay anyways. But that ended up being this really cool, kind of incredible 360 moment that I had later, because it's what eventually led me into teaching. And so, about a year after that course where they asked me to leave, I started tutoring for that course and teaching other students how to pass that really hard and what felt like impossible course. And I created this whole side hustle, and it was kind of my first like foray into entrepreneurship in this teeny way of I get to set my own schedule, and I get to set what I'm paid, and like this is a cool experience, and I love to teach, and I'm lit up by teaching anyways. Like, why isn't this the thing I'm doing? And so after I got my bachelor's in nursing and became a bedside nurse, within 6 months I went back to get my master's in nursing education. And then within 6 months to a year after finishing that, I then went back to become a family nurse practitioner, because ultimately what I decided was I was so young that nobody was going to hire me to teach. They're going to look at me and be like, who are you? You have no experience. What's going on? And so I thought this additional degree would give me even more credibility to just get me closer to doing the thing that I wanted to do.
When you look at your day-to-day work, what are the exciting and challenging parts of your work daily basis?
I think, that's pivoted. When I was in the business itself, it was all figuring out in the day to day. Everybody talks about scale, 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 and that becomes kind of this cliche word. But I was like, I'm riding a rocket ship. I have no formal business training of any kind. I am very much like figuring it out as I go. I was leaning into everything is figure outable. And so as I created my business, and I was the core educator in my business too, like I was creating the courses, I was teaching the courses, I was running the social media, like I was literally, I felt like wearing every hat imaginable. Every day, what I was building kind of unfolded differently. Like there was some days I was meeting with private equity and they're like, maybe we want to invest in you. And then there were some days where I just taught courses all day long. I think today my day to day looks very different, but that different doesn't necessarily mean bad. And I have a lot more freedom and choice in what my days look like versus I felt like my days used to run me a bit when I was running my business. And as a result, last year I very much we haven't spoken about it yet, but after I exited my business, I actually had a medically complex child. And so I felt really inspired to write a children's book about heart defects because my daughter was born before heart defects. And my day to day today will look like earlier. I'm actually opening up my own publishing imprint to do that because, you, it'd be really hard to take the entrepreneur out of me. So I'm like, how do I make this whole publishing process? Like, how do I refine on that? Like, could I be
Yes,
challenging, like a challenger brand in that way, right? And so I was
absolutely.
reviewing the website for my new publishing imprint, and I was kind of refining some of the pages in my book before it comes out next month. And it's really fun that every day looks a little bit different right now, but it's almost by design for it to be that way because I put in all of this work over these last few years to build and sell a business. And I feel like I'm just now at the point where I really get to like enjoy that. And I think that's important too. And remembering for people who are entrepreneurial, it would be so easy to just jump immediately into the next thing. But I intentionally wanted to take some space and I intentionally wanted to like find the things again that I enjoy. And then if I want to create a business out of one of those things that I enjoy, then I can do that. But
Yes, most of the time the biggest challenge is to start the business and then you keep pivoting, depends on the feedback coming from the market. That's what
oh,
we have been
yes.
yeah, that's
I
what we
tell
have been
people that all
learning.
the time.
Yes, and also you mentioned about publishing your book. Congratulations! I understand it's
Thank
coming
you.
up. Yes, so we love books. We love authors in the American Business Podcast, and we'll talk about books in couple of minutes with you. But absolutely, this is really, really exciting. And when you look at your organization company, what are the biggest challenges facing the company organization? You will say moving forward.
I think the biggest challenge is something that a lot of people will say right now is keeping up and being competitive in this AI space.
Mhm.
And that very much comes into being an education company because now you feel like you can get that education endlessly for free. And so, how do you pivot and work around that? And how do you maintain almost like that human connection a bit? It was really actually that was a core integral value and piece of why my company was so successful so fast and why we were able to exit so fast is a lot of the test prep brands that existed and had existed for decades very much felt corporate. And you felt just like a cog on the wheel or a number in the system. And you didn't really feel that personalized support in the same way. And so when my brand came in and I'm like, hey, you're anxious. I see you. That was just me. Like, let me be your guide. I didn't know it at the time, but I really love Story Brand. When I found out about it later, I was very much doing the Story Brand approach just inadvertently. But I think as long as we can find ways to ingrain that human connection and make people feel not like numbers or cogs in a wheel, then we're doing the right job. We just got to figure out how do we evolve alongside AI instead of competing against it.
I think you just pointed a pretty important point. In the American Business Podcast, we keep talking about AI. We covered from
Same
different
here.
subjects. How do you see the impact of AI on business in general?
I think it expedites everything, but it also there's kind of this interesting. thing that happens with AI where it makes everything less personalized. So you can do so much faster, but you're depersonalizing it in the process. And for some companies, that will be stellar. When you're looking at something like test prep, like that's actually a really hard problem to solve for, and something that you have to be very innovative in your approach, and kind of like I was talking about before, evolving alongside it instead of competing against it. Like, you don't want to be the company like, okay, I want to have human to human connection, and I want this to feel like a personal brand like it's always been, so we're not going to do AI. Like, I don't think that's the solution. I think, you know, AI tutors can be wonderful adjuncts to a test prep brand and those sorts of things.
Yes, and to your point, in terms of education nowadays, that's the conversation, right? So how the AI will shape the education and higher education in general. Will there be any universities in the future or education institutions, or AI will drive these process in the future? Do you have any take on that?
Um, I don't think I necessarily have a take on whether, education is going to fall apart in the next 10 to 20
Mhm.
years as a result of AI. But I do like the idea and vision of when I was getting my master's in nursing education. Actually, I did a really cool program through Western Governors University, if you've ever heard of it, where it was considered to be competency based learning. And so you didn't have to do any of the adjunct courses or pieces. It was very focused in on what you were trying to get a degree in. But
Mhm.
also, you could literally log into the class on day one, and if you could pass the exam, then went ahead and got your grade for the class, and you moved on to the next class. And so I was able to expedite getting my degree because of that. I think it would be cool to see a pivot to more competency based education, because that was a phenomenal experience for me to be like, why am I taking a full semester long course about something that I already know and understand? Like, I need to move on to the next thing. And so
Mhm.
my hope and vision for education is pivots to more of that moving forward.
Yes, yes, I think that's a great point. Yeah, it needs to also evolve. I mean, the old way of teaching needs to change with the technology, with the approach that just you mentioned. And it looks like there's a trend slowly. That's what I'm seeing in the market, but it'll take some time to see it in general. Eventually, that's an industry. That's a pretty big industry, education, and for this type of change, it's going to be slow. It's going to take time, but it looks like it's happening. So that's really promising.
Yeah, and then I think like an
Mhm,
interesting side conversation to that, I talked about, I'm opening up my own publishing imprint right now. I'm kind of diving into this publishing world.
mhm,
Obviously, AI is a super hot topic in
mhm.
publishing, and you know, copyright and intellectual property and all the pieces. But to give a fun example of how AI can kind of expedite things, I had always wanted to write a children's book. Didn't necessarily know that it was one day going to be about heart defects in my daughter, but I did have like this inherent desire. And something that was always a barrier for me is, how will I create images for this book? Like, I'm not
Mhm.
connected in the publishing world quite yet. I'm like very much getting connected now, but I'm not connected in that way. And how I'll do this, like, I'm not an illustrator. And last year, when ChatGPT released that they were going to be able to make their own images, that was the first thing I played around with. I'm like, could I create images that I could one day use in a children's book, or would like use as a foundation? And it was so fun because literally the weekend that ChatGPT unrolled their image creation feature, I wrote my entire children's book that weekend, because that's me as a person. I like to move fast. Actually, some of my best business advice is to literally just start. Like, if you have the idea, just do the thing. So I had the
Speed.
idea, I had the
Mhm.
ability. Speed's so important.
Yes.
And so I wrote the whole children's book in a weekend. I got some baseline images out of ChatGPT, and then I was able to use those foundational images to send to an illustrator to then one day create what is now my book, which is really cool.
Yes, yes, absolutely. That's actually a great example what you just mentioned in terms of utilizing AI to do something as a tool.
It's a
So
tool.
that's as a tool, yes, because it really mess up sometimes. I mean, you experience it yourself. That you ask questions. I had a experience actually last year in December. So I was trying to I had an idea about the podcast. So I said, hey, let's talk to some of the LLMs, right? So I pull up for 3, 4 of them, and I start asking questions, and one of them really just lost it, and then hey Kevin, this is great. It is a war. You'll be the commander of the war. And I was like, this is just an idea. I mean, slow down. So I was so surprised.
You're like, how did
So
we get here?
it was so funny. It just carried away. And I had to stop it right there. But it's an example. We are adults, we are seniors, so we understand it. We can, just stop it right there. But I was really worried about the younger generation, right? So if you just first time experiencing these, and then AI takes you to some other world in some other direction, that is scary in
Yeah, my
terms of
big thing with AI that
utilizing
I
it.
talk about a lot
Hmm.
is just discernment. Like, you have to use discernment in every interaction. You have to remember that it's a tool. Like, I never would have used AI to write my children's book, if that makes sense. Like, I wanted to write the story, and then I used the adjunct tool to create the baseline images to then one day become the book, right? But it can't be a one-stop shop.
Hmm. Hmm. And regarding your publishing company, so what type of books are you planning to publish?
Children's books exclusively,
Okay.
and books really centered around healing, compassion, and inclusivity. When I had my daughter, and we were very much into books in our house and trying to find books to fill our home that talk about her condition and condition of those like her, I found less than 10. And so I wanted to make it a little bit broader than just heart defects.
Hmm.
But my vision is anyone who wants to write a book really revolving around inclusivity could come to the Little Clover Press, is what it's called.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Um, I'm glad you talk about this. As I mentioned, we love books in the American Business Podcast. It's a great way to learn new things, different things, keep evolving and learning. We always talk about continuous improvement in the American Business Podcast, and books are the resource that we can use in that direction. And I'm happy to say we also receive a lot of requests from authors, especially business authors. They like to talk about their books. They like us to review their books. And this year we are starting a special segment in the American Business Podcast just for business book review. So it's gonna be more informative content for all of us as a business community, especially in the American Business Podcast.
That's awesome.
You have experience as an entrepreneur, and also I like to talk about female entrepreneurship, if that's okay.
Of
In
course.
2025, which was our first year, first I must say 10 months. We are not 1 year old yet, what feels like years, which is great. So last year we talked about different business subjects with different female entrepreneurs, and we were really inspired by the knowledge and the drive. I see the same thing in you as well. This is really energizing. So how do you see the state of female entrepreneurship nowadays, and any advice for female entrepreneurs or future female entrepreneurs?
Yeah. I think there is a lot of things. I think the thing maybe that I searched for the most in my entrepreneurship journey, specifically as a female entrepreneur, was other female entrepreneurs. Like, I really wanted that community piece, and I wanted people that really like understood what it's like to walk into a room, and here I am thinking about potentially selling my business, and I log onto this Zoom call, and the 7 people in there are all men. I'm the only woman in the room. And so I wanted people that had that inherent understanding, but also kind of the barriers faced as a female entrepreneur as well. There's this really like harrowing statistic that less than 2% of female entrepreneurs, hit that 1 million in revenue. And a lot of that are gaps in funding, but a lot of that I think is a gap in confidence too. I felt like the journey of my business was really the journey of my confidence in myself. And I kind of got to have this cool culminating moment because as I was in the process of selling my business, the company that I eventually sold to, they made an offer to me that I at first turned down. And I had a broker at the time who literally told me I was insane, like, quote unquote. He's like, "You're insane." I'm like, "No, listen, there's a couple of things, but I would say the core piece was I was really betting on myself again. I talked about earlier betting on myself when I was in nursing school and deciding to continue that journey. And when I got the offer and it wasn't close to what I needed or wanted or had envisioned, I had to really like take that risk and take that gamble to bet on myself. But it gave me so much confidence in that moment to do that. And I think everything building up to that, as I tried to find more community and find more education and find more books and more podcasts and all the pieces, we're just searching for that confidence. I do think that it can also be hard as a female entrepreneur to find the right communities. And I think you've got to find one that fits for you. Like, I, I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. I don't think simple is the right word, but I feel like I'm very like humble and grounded in my life and my approach. So if I'm going to a female entrepreneurship event and there's like a designated like color dress code by day and like those sorts of things, that's not really my vibe. So you've got to figure out like how do you narrow that down for yourself and what does that look like and what feels good to you. But I did an incredible retreat out in Sedona last year. And I love kind of getting to be able to separate and connect with other female entrepreneurs in different spaces. But out in Sedona, like we were hiking through the mountains and we were stargazing, we were doing all these different things. And none of that sounds like business building or entrepreneurship, but getting to have just like no fluff, all the facades gone, just real conversations with other people about how they're running their lives and their businesses. I mean, that's invaluable.
Based on your experience as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, what are the best marketing practices that bring the highest ROI nowadays?
It's interesting. I probably have a different approach than most people that would come on this podcast, but it's just based on my own lived experience. I still very much believe in organic marketing, and I believe in marketing that tells a story. And we talked about story brand and kind of like painting that transformation, those sorts of things, and positioning yourself as the guide. But I had $1 million in my business without ever running a single digital ad. And for most of that time, I was just feeding my community from behind a computer screen. Like I wasn't even necessarily like doing videos yet or being live on Instagram or like showing up in that way. But I was telling my story through writing. I was connecting with the humans. I was kind of co-creating these courses, practice questions, this like tutoring service with. And I think as a result, organic marketing, which sounds like so old school, can be really successful. And just remembering, I think the other thing too is always consistency. I feel like where a lot of people get lost is either they don't start the idea or they get lost in being consistent and practical with the idea. And when people see you showing up over and over and over, even if that's in your marketing or wherever else in your business, that is always fruitful.
Absolutely. And to your point, what you just described is the best marketing practice in general. So, what we have been learning, what we have been seeing, marketing is my expertise. So, everything starts with positioning, right? So, who you are, what
Positioning
you do, what you offer, and who is your customer, the
and making
ideal
that simple.
profile. Exactly, and you reach out to them, right? You connect them. That is it. That is it. So, I mean, that's the best example that you just mentioned, and I'm glad that you talk about this. So sometimes there is a confusion in the market. So the marketing is not just throwing around digital marketing pieces or advertising or things like that. That comes later if there is a need. Everything
Mhm.
starts with product, position of it, finding your right customer profile, which you just described it very clearly, and then communicating to them the value that you are offering. And then you deliver. That is pretty much it in a
Yeah.
simplistic term, and then you can support it with digital marketing, other marketing or other advertising methods if there is a need. And the word of mouth, to your point, the organic marketing is the best marketing method, the least the most economical and the most impactful in general. So what you just mentioned, absolutely, just to support your point, it's a great example. I'm glad you talk about this. Also in business, the leadership is also very important. From your point of view, how do you define leadership, and what are the great leadership qualities?
I think my leadership definitely evolved as I built my business. We were always kind of a teeny tiny team. And I've talked about human connection, and I always talk about being human first and remembering that these are humans on your team and they are humans that you are leading. And so their lives are more than just your business, even though if you wish their whole lives were your business, they are not, it is yours. And I think the best skill that a leader can have today is to be emotionally intelligent. And also, we talked about the big board prep companies, kind of students felt like numbers. You never want your team members to feel like numbers either. You want them to feel seen and heard, because then when they're having big issues, or even before they have big issues, they feel comfortable to come to you. And I definitely like a lot of co-collaboration amongst the team. Like, you can be in a leadership role and still have this beautiful space to collaborate and co-create and do things together, and reminding everyone like we are a team. Like, we're never opposing forces here. Like, we are all on a team together, and we're all trying to do our best together. And I think the more that you lean into that team mentality and reminding everyone that we're on the same page, we're on the same team together, it's super beneficial.
Do you have any role models? Have you had any mentors that help you shape your career journey over the years?
I think my first business coach is always the first one that comes to mind. Her name is Becca Pike. And I'll never forget the first day that I called her, because I had hit 250K in my business. This had happened in about 4 months' time. I was kind of panicking, to be honest, because it was just me and only me. And I didn't have a functioning website at the time. It was very early stage for me and my business, even at that dollar volume. And that, just to give some perspective to my business, like, I had made 250K without a website. Like, that was all through Facebook Messenger and Venmo and Cash App and PayPal and all these things, which is so cool. But I was pretty fried pretty fast. Like, I talked to every student completely on my own. I had no clue whatsoever how to delegate or build a team or build infrastructure, all those pieces that a lot of people probably would have had figured out by the time they had made that much money. But she was incredible to me, number one, in just building the business basics. And number two, making me lean really, really, really hard. And I'm doing so hard into my authenticity and my transparency. I had created this kind of mental health test brand, but I was afraid to show my face in a lot of ways. Like, I talked about, I was like hiding behind a screen. And so she was like, just show up exactly as you are, and people are going to love it. And I'm like, no. And she's like, no. She's like, you are the brand, you are the story. Show up as you are, and it's going to explode. And she was exactly right, because that's how, from month 4 when we made 250K to month 7 when we had already hit 1 million, like, that was a big driver in doing that. And so I'm forever grateful to her for just having this, like, I believe she calls it like radical authenticity, and like just radical acceptance all the time, and just leaning in really hard. She's incredible.
I love it. Radical authenticity. That's a
Hmm.
great, great concept and makes a lot of sense. A lot of sense. If there is one key career lesson that you learned the hard way, what would it be that you can share with us?
I think the thing that I thought was always a strength, but then eventually I realized it wasn't. It was kind of pushing through my anxiety. And for me, I now have diagnosed OCD, so I kind of have a better framework around my brain and how it works and how I created my business and how I ran it. But I didn't get my OCD diagnosis until after I'd already sold my business, actually. And so I used to push through, push through, push through, push through, and really like push myself to my absolute limit, almost like to a point of collapse. And I think what I was actually trying to do in my business by working so hard was outrun my anxiety and outrun this giant fear of uncertainty all the time. But, big shocker, newsflash, everything in life is uncertain. even if you think it is certain. But I think career wise, big career lesson for me is you can only push through for so long and then it's going to catch up. And I kind of had that big catch up moment in my life after I had sold my business. So that was a big identity shift. But B, getting my daughter's diagnosis as well. It was kind of a double whammy. But it was a beautiful catch up moment in the sense of it was really hard, but it led to me eventually getting my OCD diagnosis. And now I have so many better ways to work with my anxiety and figure out how I want to run my next business in kind of a more sustainable way instead of a hard and fast all the time kind of way.
Well, just like you mentioned, sometimes there are challenges we need to face. Sometimes there is hardship. How to stay motivated and inspired in times of challenges and uncertainty in
I
business?
think it's always reconnecting to your values. Like what do you value most in life? And when I come back to those consistently, I'm always motivated. One of my values is storytelling. And that sounds like a weird value, but it's something that I feel like is a skill of mine and it's helpful and it's impactful to other people to tell my story in all kinds of different ways. I have my mental health story, but I also have my story as a medical parent now, and my story as an entrepreneur and helping people rewrite narratives. So, all that being said, I think figure out what your values are is step one. If you don't know what those are, and you've really got to kind of define them down. Like, it can't just be like, I value flexibility. Well, in what way do you value flexibility? In what parts of your life do you value flexibility? When I think about flexibility, I'm always thinking about it from an OCD perspective in the sense of with OCD, it would be really easy to have a lot of rigidity in your life and be really fixed a lot of the time. And so when I'm thinking about flexibility, I'm thinking like, how easily can I pivot? How adaptable am I? And kind of like graining that down a bit further. But the more you lean into what you value, the more lit up you're going to be. And I feel like everything is easier as a result.
What is your biggest interest and passions outside of work?
1000%. And this is going to sound like a hard left pivot, but it's a lot of fun for me. Is actually astrology. Astrology is fascinating to me in my brain, which is so funny as a nurse practitioner and like an exited founder. But I actually have my own astrology podcast that I do with a friend. And it was
Wow.
something that I started last year as a result of leaving my business and figuring out, okay, what things do light me up? What is fun for me? Like, is this something I want to create a business out of? And so the podcast kind of became an experiment in some ways of like, how hard do I want to lean in? But yeah, astrology is a blast for me.
Yeah, this is really exciting and different from what you've been just
Totally
talking about.
different.
So this is really, really exciting. Yes, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's really cool.
How did you get started with?
Crazy
Yes, I
enough.
hate to ask.
No, it's a great
Very
question.
interesting. Yes.
And it's a great story, actually, because I was in the process of deciding if I wanted to leave my former business because, the entrepreneur to employee pivot was hard for me. And I was talking to my accountant about it because my accountant was my fractional CFO in my business. So we've been together for a while. We're pretty similar in age, so we're friends in a lot of ways. And so I was telling her, like, I'm making this big decision. I'm uncertain. I'm figuring things out. And she was like, well, what's your birth time? And I'm like, what do you need my birth time for? Like, what are you talking about? And of all people, my accountant has been into astrology for the last 5 years. I had no idea. And she was like, I would love to look at your chart and see what's going on for you right now. Because she's like, obviously, something big is changing and shifting in your chart. And she got me an appointment with her astrologer. And that
Mhm.
astrologer knew down to the day I decided I was probably going to leave my business. And she like knew a couple of different dates. And I was like, well, that's fascinating. And then she predicted something about the future. And I was like, well, we'll just see how this unfolds. And everything she said came true. And I was like, okay, there must be some merit to this. So I spent a lot of last year studying. And then as I studied and learned more, I just applied it to the podcast. And I was like, almost that same thing of come learn alongside me.
Yes, absolutely. This is really interesting. Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I not always, but I also refer to it too sometimes to see what is going on. My horoscope is Taurus, so that helps a little bit to get an understanding of what is going on and how things
Yeah.
are shaping. So and sometimes it's very interesting. It's just spot on.
It
That
can
really,
be so spot on, like
yeah,
eerily spot on.
yes. So that's very interesting and good to learn. Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you for this insight. Um, okay, great. Well, if you had a chance to go back history,
Mhm.
personally or historically, to what time period would you like to go back and why?
I'm going to be super selfish, which I try really hard not to do, but I would actually really, really love to go back to when I sold my business. And the reason for that is so I sold my business in June of 2022. We found out my daughter was going to be sick in July, and she was born the first week of August. And so I wish that I had known that that June to July window was kind of my time window to celebrate and bask in the glory of selling the business and doing the thing and take a pause. Because, instead, I was very much like, I'm about to give birth and have a baby and take a short maternity leave. So I need to get all my players in place and all my plans in place. And I didn't really get to take that moment to celebrate this really big thing that I had worked towards and to have this like moment with my husband of like, oh my God, we actually did the thing. And so I would love to go back to that very small window of time.
Is there a book, a movie, a show that help you shape your career perspective over the years?
I think the most pivotal book that I read when I was creating my business was Who Not How. I'm sure it's probably been talked about on here before. It's a great book and it really just like zones in like, okay, what do you actually need to be responsible for? I loved being the creative in my business. But there were a lot of things in my business that I really didn't love and I really need to delegate and outsource. And I think thinking about it through the who, not how framework gave me great positioning to be able to move forward as I build out my team. And then I'm actually going to add in a movie too. It's not business related though. There was a movie that I watched right before my daughter was born called Something the Lord Made, and it is completely focused around basically like the first open heart surgery and how that evolved. And actually, the first open heart surgery was to try to fix my daughter's defect that she has today. And seeing the innovation and the creativity and the pioneering that went into kind of like the origins of what created the possibility for my daughter's future today was super inspiring. And I think about it a lot as I do advocacy work because this congenital heart defect space that I'm in with my daughter is still a relatively new area of medicine. And there's so many incredible and inspirational pioneers today doing really cool things. And so I think about that movie a lot.
What is the best career advice, business advice that you ever received? And what is the worst one that you ever received?
I would say the worst advice was when my broker told me that I was insane and I should sell for half the valuation of what I wanted. I am so grateful that I did not listen for a single second and I very much like stood in my agency and stood in my power and I'm like, I know your experience. I know you think this is insane, but I don't feel that way whatsoever and I have to lean into that. I think the best career advice that I could give to other people and just to make it like super simple and super tangible is to just start. So many people get lost in this analysis paralysis like, okay, I have, the workings of a cool idea or something that I want to do or something that lit me up for a moment in time. And now I'm going to bog it down of like, oh, to have a business, I probably need a website, or oh, to have a business, I probably need to have a business card and Instagram and all this stuff. And I think part of the beauty of the test prep brand that I created was I had an idea, I spent a week getting it all together. I recorded the thing in a weekend. And by the next week, so literally 1 week from having the idea, I had the first iteration out. And I'm just like, here, try this. Tell me what you think. Let's co create together. Because whatever you create in the beginning is not going to end up being what the end product is, anyways. So you might as well get something out there, see if it resonates with people. And then if it does, you can co create, collaborate, pivot, iterate, all those things that were going to happen, anyways.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the lean model. So you come up with the product, you get the feedback, you make the changes, and then you offer it again, and then you get the feedback again, and then you make the change. You keep pivoting as it
Yep.
goes based
Over
on
and
the
over.
feedback. And
Absolutely.
yeah, with the speed that you mentioned, it can be really really effective in terms of getting results. Absolutely, that's a great use case that you share with us. Um, well, is there any question that you had expected me to ask you, but I didn't ask you?
I think the only thing that maybe we didn't talk about that I would have loved a question about is I'm actually kind of writing. It's not completely a business book. I'm going to throw that out there. It's not completely a business book, but it is going to talk about the journey of my business, and kind of a journey of my life. I'm writing a memoir right now as well.
Oh,
It
wow. Please
takes
tell us about it.
yeah, it takes so much longer than a children's book. Children's books, like, okay, weekend and done. I got it. It's beautiful. And my memoir, I'm 100,000 words in now, and so now I'm like chopping and rearranging.
Mm,
But it kind of paints the story of how did I go from someone who was almost thrown out of nursing school and also grew up in a really poor part of the country in rural Eastern Kentucky to then becoming this exited 8-figure founder and philanthropist and author and activist, and how do all those things string together and kind of my mental health journey along the way. And so I think my memoir, when it's done, is going to be incredible, but we're just not there quite yet.
yeah, this is really exciting. Love to learn more whenever you are ready. And whenever you are ready, we can also talk about in the podcast as well. And because we are in the American business podcast, I have to tie it into it because it just makes sense. What you just described, like having the nursing background and then being an entrepreneur and having other activities at the same time and start a business, grow a business, sell a business, and start another one. This can only happen in the United States. I can tell you
Oh,
right
yeah.
now. We are really lucky. This is a great
It's
country.
wild.
Absolutely. I'll just say it out loud because that's why we name it the American Business Podcast because we are really proud of it. I also experience myself personally as well. My business is enterprise software business. I work with small and mid-sized companies, and I learn from them as well as I also have a chance to share my insights. Um, to your point, I see different businesses, different stories, and the success that they actually achieve, and they create value for the business communities, for the country, and that is really inspiring. And to your point, we are really lucky to be in United States, so we can create businesses because the business culture, communities, they support it. That's just how it is.
Yeah, my husband is actually, he's taking his foray into entrepreneurship right now and creating his first business, which is a contract distillery. So
Mhm.
it's
That's
incredible to be an entrepreneur.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, okay. So we have a tradition in the American Business Podcast. So y- each guest, we ask our guests to leave a question for our following guests. So I have a question for you coming from our previous guest, if
All
that's
right.
okay. So the
Mm-hmm.
question is, if you will start it all over again, would you do it again in terms of your business?
Oh, 1000%. Like, without a doubt, I would run head first. I would probably run even harder at it because to think about where my life was when COVID started, like, not only where my life was, but the life of my one day future employees, of my family, and even, as a result of the sale of my business, we were actually able to do this really cool legacy gift to our local children's hospital where we donated $15 million and they actually named a unit in our daughter's honor. Um, Thinking about all the cool ways that our money has impacted the lives of not only us, but the people around us and the philanthropy work that we're able to do, like I would just run so hard. I'd be like, I am here for it. And it's funny looking back because it took me until I hit $1 million to quit my full-time job at the time because I was so anxious. And I'm like, imagine how much faster the business would have grown had I not been bogged down by my 40-hour-a-week job that I insisted on keeping. But here we are.
Yes, yes. Well, your philanthropy is also exemplary. Well, for what question would you like to leave for our next guest?
I think that I would like to ask them, what is something that you could do in 2026 to show up more authentically or more transparently or both in your business?
Okay, we'll make sure to ask that, and thank you for this question. Do you have any question for me?
So you said you're a Taurus sun, correct?
Yes.
Do you know your other two main signs?
um, let's see. Not. I think Sagittarius. I think. But I may
Sagittarius
be
rising,
mistaken.
maybe?
Yeah, I gotta double check. Yeah, I'm not so good at it.
You'll have to let me know. So, for
Okay.
anyone out there listening that knows their astrology, I'm a Sag rising, which I think people very much get from like listening to me talk about business and philanthropy and all the things. And then I'm an Aries moon. Your moon is like how you feel. So I move through things really fast. I decide fast. And then I'm a Virgo sun. So I very much like to make things real world and tangible. So I always love to ask other people if you know what your big three are because they very much show up in your business too. You'll have to
Okay.
look
So
it up.
just one is not enough. You also need to have the moon and the sign version of
Yes.
the horoscope to get a more precise prediction or
Yes, the most accurate
projection. Yeah.
horoscope that you're going to get is reading horoscopes for your rising sign. So if you're actually a Sagittarius rising, you should read horoscopes for Sagittarius.
Okay. All right. Well, okay.
Yeah.
I'll be in touch.
You're like, oh, I'm intrigued.
Yeah, I am definitely. Yeah. So that's great. Yeah. Let's have this conversation. Absolutely. I was also thinking about like how would it? I mean, in general, how would it really be applied to businesses or business professionals? Like, let's say, what is the best way to make a great deal, or what is the day that you should be really just don't do anything, just stay away from any type of deal, like based on these. So just curious. It would be a really interesting conversation. Um,
Yeah, a lot of what I talk to people about with astrology, actually, and why I think it's so interesting in business is as a capacity building tool. So I can look at different seasons of the year and be like, that part of the year looks harder. I'm probably not going to launch my children's book because last year I actually planned on launching my children's book in November. And I looked at the astrology ahead of time and I was like, I just don't, it doesn't look like the right time. And I have flexibility, so I'll push it back to February because February's heart month, for example. And then November came and it was a storm for me. And I was so glad that I did not have the launch of my children's book to add
mm,
to the other things going on in my life. So I kind of like looking at it big picture for perspective and almost like seasonality. I think the best way probably to describe astrology is like a weather forecast. And so if you look at the forecast and it's like it looks like it's going to rain tomorrow at 5 o'clock, you're probably not going to plan a picnic. Like you're probably going to have an umbrella and you're going to have a raincoat. And so you just get a little bit of mental preparation for what's coming.
yeah, this is really insightful. This is great. Well, for those who like to continue this conversation with you, what is the best way for them to be in touch with you and learn about your company and your activities?
Yeah, absolutely. So my former company that I exited is Sarah Michelle MP Reviews. That's at mpreviews.com. So if you know a nurse practitioner preparing for boards, they've got it all. And then if you want to connect with me personally, learn more about my upcoming books, that would be at sarahmichellebose.com, and it's BOES. And if you are at the end of this and you're like, oh my goodness, what is astrology? Is this real? You can check out Cosmic Group Chat, which is my astrology hobbyist podcast. That is a lot of fun.
Yeah, this is really good. And if you can please leave your email address, we can also be in touch. I was just taking my notes. I don't think I have your contact information. I got it through the PR agency. So that'd be great if you can just type your email address in the chat box if that's okay, so we can
Yeah,
really stay in
I'll
touch.
absolutely do that.
Yes, and that was our first episode for the American Business Podcast in 2026. Thank you so much for being with us. That was a great conversation and very inspirational, I have to say, because this is our 122nd episode. I've been talking with many different business
All the
professionals,
different
owners.
businesses.
I'm in business myself, so I also experience it. So I love your approach to entrepreneurship. We always support female entrepreneurship in the American Business Podcast. So you are a great example, and I love your story, and I love your humility. We talk about leadership. We talk about all the time actually about leadership in the American Business Podcast. And last year we had a leadership guru. We had the Joe Beauchamp from Team Beauchamp. He joined us and he talked about leadership, fundamentals of leadership, and how leadership is evolving in the age of AI. We talk about these, and when I asked him about defining leadership, what is leadership, and how a leader should be, the first thing he told us was humility.
Hmm, I love
So
that
that's
so
what I see
much.
in you. So that's really, really
Oh, thanks.
motivation. Yeah. So I like to share it with you. And thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for sharing your business story with us, and appreciate it. So looking forward to be in touch with you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I
Thank you very
appreciate your
much, and I
time.
wish you and your family a happy New Year.
Oh, yes, happy 2026.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, and have a great year. Thank you. Well, to our audience and to our listeners, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Just to reflect on 2025, we actually brought many different business subjects, and we share them with you. And this year will be a great year as well, as I talk about the American Business Podcast in 2025 26 with Sarah, and as we learn from her insights, this is going to be a great year for us. We are really, really motivated. And when we look at 2025, actually it was also very uh, exciting for us in general. We did a lot of things in terms of our success, and what we have actually made it together with your help and support in the American Business Podcast, and with our success in YouTube, as well as having more than 1 million views in actually in 10 months, and having more than 2,000 videos available for you in short and long forms in the American Business Podcast. And also, as I mentioned earlier, we also got listed on imdb.com, which is very rare for business podcast in general. So we managed to be listed on imdb.com in just 10 months. And now we are available with international episodes, right? So now we have ABP Espanol, we have ABP German, as well as let's see if we can also bring them to our screen so you can also see them. So we have ABP Espanol, we have ABP German, we have ABP French, so you can listen to and watch the American Business Podcast episodes in different languages. And these are videos, by the way, so that's also very easy to follow in that sense, and see our guest, listen to our guest, and get the insights from our guests from business point of view, education point of view. We keep the American Business Podcast educational all the time. It is because we believe in continuous learning, and the American Business Podcast shares these educational insight with you. And with that, also, we are also learning from you with your feedback, and from your insights as well. So that's also very, very inspiring. And I also thank you for your help and support in uh, starting the American Business Podcast and growing it with you. The American Business Podcast is not just a podcast, it is actually a business community. That's where we are going together with you. And we are growing uh, really, really fast with your help and support. If you like to be a guest in the American Business Podcast, you can send us an email. Let's bring our latest email address to our screen. Let's update it right here on the screen. Okay, let's do this. Okay, so you can send us guest booking at americanpodcast.tv. That is our new email address for to be a guest in the American Business Podcast. We also welcome advertisers and sponsors, and you can also send us an email. Grow my business at business American podcast.tv. Also, you can send us an email for your feedback as well. americanbusinesspodcast@gmail.com. We still use the Gmail address. We are moving our email addresses to americanpodcast.tv at the moment. And that's a great way to be in touch with us. Also, we have a updated website, americanpodcast.tv. You can visit our website and you can learn more about what we are doing in the American Business Podcast, our plans coming up, and also you can also see our coming schedule. Great. We'll be right back after a quick break. Support for the American Business Podcast comes from Reddit. Do you know the biggest challenge nowadays for Americans? Support for the American Business Podcast comes from Reddit. Do you know the biggest challenge nowadays for American small businesses? That is visibility. That's why we partner with Reddit, Reddit for Business. Reddit has more than 400 million weekly visitors. Furthermore, Reddit is reliable. Reddit is the number one source for real reviews on products, services, and brands. There is a promotion going on. When you spend $500, you'll get $500 in ad credit from Reddit. True story. I am a Reddit user. Anytime I need feedback or review for a product or service, I go to Reddit. I get the real answers, real feedback from real people, from Reddit communities. Scan this QR code and sign up for Reddit advertising for your business. Get the visibility for your company, your products, and services. Scan the QR code and sign up today. Thank you for your support. Support for the American Business Podcast comes from Brother. From large companies to small offices, Brother has powerful printers and all-in-ones for your growing business. Scan the QR code and find the best printers for your needs. When you scan the QR code, you can see the entire collection, business office equipment collection of Brother USA, and pick the one that you like. You'll find printers, labels, toners, all-in-ones, and other office equipment available on Brother website when you scan the QR code. Scan the QR code and start shopping for Brother office equipment today. Thank you for your support. Support for the show comes from Yelp. You know, I've been talking to more than 100 business owners in the American Business Podcast. Do you know the biggest problem for small businesses nowadays? It is visibility. That is why you should sign up and list your business on Yelp for Business. I have the QR code on the screen, and when you scan the QR code, the form will show up on your screen and you can sign up on the registration form. It comes with free trial with no obligation. Make it easy for your customers to find you. Do you know there are more than 70 million customers visiting Yelp website looking for services from businesses just like yours? Restaurants, home services, professional services, and many other businesses are being searched on Yelp on daily basis. That's a great opportunity. If you list your business on Yelp, you'll be findable, searchable, and you'll be visible. When you are visible, when your customers are able to find you, you're in business. You can get opportunities, you can get leads, you can build a healthy and profitable pipeline. Consider Yelp for Business. Scan the QR code, sign up, and start your free trial. It comes with free trial. Very comfortable, no obligation. List your business and start getting the results and enjoy the benefits of Yelp Business. Thank you for your support. Support for the American Business Podcast comes from Rosetta Stone. Rosetta Stone is bringing you foreign languages. Learn from the experts, choose your plan to get started, sign up today. New Year is coming, and if your New Year resolution is learning a foreign language, Rosetta Stone is the choice for you. Rosetta Stone is offering you a long list of foreign languages: French, Italian, German, Chinese, Greek, Turkish, Polish, Portuguese, Vietnamese, and many more languages are available for you to get started today. Scan the QR code on the screen and sign up for Rosetta Stone and enjoy the learning experience of foreign language. Thank you very much. Support for the American Business Podcast comes from YZ. At the American Business Podcast, we always talk about continuous improvement and professional development. That is why we partner with YZ, trust the nation's largest network for tutoring. YZ helps you find the tutor that you need in many different subjects: chemistry, computer, foreign languages, geometry, English, music, physics, reading, SAT, science, and many more. I have the QR code on the screen that you can sign up and start searching for tutors and enjoy the learning experience and continuous improvement as we always talk about in the American Business Podcast. Scan the QR code and sign up for YZen today. Thank you very much. We are back in the American Business Podcast. All right, we have updated email addresses on the screen. To be a guest in the American Business Podcast, please send us an email, guestbooking@americanpodcast.tv. To be a sponsor, advertise your business, your products and services in the American Business Podcast, please send us an email, growyourbusiness@americanpodcast.tv. As you know, in the American Business Podcast, we just only talk about American business. We also organize events for networking purposes. That is why we created Connection America Business Alliance. That's a podcasting plus networking, online business networking event. And the next one is scheduled for January. January, let's look at and confirm our date. January 30th is our next date for the podcasting plus networking online business networking event. You can connect from anywhere in the US, anywhere in the world. The idea is to network with other business professionals. You meet with other business professionals, you connect, and at the same time, you are in the American Business Podcast in front of thousands of the American Business Podcast viewers and listeners. That's a great opportunity for you to introduce your company, your products, your services, and brands as well. When you scan this QR code, you'll see the list of Connection America podcasting plus networking online business networking events. You'll see the list of events on the screen, and you can pick the one that you like. January, February, March already been posted. This is a monthly online networking event. You pick the one that you like. Please sign up and join us. We have limited seating. And the January event for the January 30th is already been started. And I hope you can join us and connect with other business professionals and be part of the American Business Podcast business community. I'd like to thank you for your time and thank you for your interest. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the coming the American Business Podcast episodes. Thank you.